Have you ever lain in bed at night, exhausted, yet your mind refuses to switch off, almost as if your body is wired to stay awake against your will? That was me for years. My problem wasn't just about feeling tired. It was about the way poor sleep slowly eroded my focus, my mood, and my ability to show up in life. I thought I could just push through, but over time, I realized the lack of rest was quietly controlling every part of my day. The first wake-up call came when I learned how deeply sleep influences hormones. Elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, was keeping me alert long after I wanted to sleep. It wasn't just about shutting my eyes. It was about calming my entire internal system. The truth is, your body can't drift into deep, restorative sleep if it's still in fight or flight mode. I began looking at my days, not just my nights. The habits I thought were harmless, late coffee, checking my phone before bed, even certain types of workouts, were signaling to my brain, stay awake. The problem wasn't the bedroom, it was the lifestyle leading up to it. I realized that good sleep is built in the morning and maintained all day. Nutrition was another breakthrough. I had to stabilize my blood sugar because those late-night crashes or spikes were nudging my body to wake up. Eating balanced, nutrient-dense meals with enough magnesium-rich foods made my nights calmer and my mornings more energized. I also started protecting my circadian rhythm. Every morning, I exposed my eyes to natural light within minutes of waking. In the evening, I dimmed the lights and let my brain know the day was ending. I didn't just change my bedtime, I changed the signals my body was receiving all day long. It took weeks, not days, but the shift was undeniable. My sleep became deeper. I woke up feeling genuinely restored instead of groggy. And I realized something profound. Fixing sleep is not just about ending fatigue. It's about reclaiming your clarity, your patience, your creativity, everything you need to live fully. If you're struggling with sleep, don't just focus on the hours you're in bed. Look at the 16 hours before it. That's where the real solution begins. Have you ever noticed how a single bad night of sleep can completely change the way you think, act, and feel? Now imagine stacking those nights one after another for weeks or months. That's what I went through. At first, it seemed like just feeling a bit tired during the day. But the truth is, the impact went much deeper. My ability to focus dropped. I'd find myself rereading the same paragraph in a book over and over. I'd forget small things, where I put my keys, what I was about to say. My mood became unpredictable, like I was walking around with less patience and a shorter fuse. It wasn't because I was a different person, it was because my brain was running on empty. What's tricky about sleep deprivation is that it doesn't always scream for your attention. It's subtle. You might tell yourself you're just stressed, or you just need more coffee, or it's just a busy week. But behind the scenes, your body is paying the price. Your immune system weakens, your ability to think critically drops, and even your decision-making starts to shift. Research shows that lack of sleep changes how your brain processes reward and risk. It can make you more impulsive, more easily distracted, and less resilient to challenges. And here's the part that caught me off guard. Your body will try to adapt to this new normal. You'll think, this is just who I am now, when in reality, you're just operating at a fraction of your potential. I started to realize I wasn't just tired. I was living in a state of constant repair where my body never had enough time to fully restore itself. Sleep is not just about rest. It's the time when your brain clears out waste, when your muscles rebuild, when your hormones reset. Without it, you're trying to run a high-performance engine without ever stopping to refuel or maintain it. It's easy to ignore because we live in a world that rewards busyness and pushes rest to the bottom of the priority list. But I learned the hard way. When you sacrifice sleep, you're sacrificing the very foundation of your health, your mood, and your ability to think clearly. And the worst part? You might not even realize how much it's costing you until you finally start sleeping well again and suddenly feel like a completely different person. The second thing I had to face was the hidden connection between stress hormones and my inability to sleep. I used to think my problem was purely about not being tired enough at night, or maybe just needing to go to bed earlier. But the real issue was that my body was stuck in a state of alertness. Even when I was physically exhausted, my nervous system was acting as if there was some kind of emergency. This constant on mode was being driven by high levels of cortisol, the hormone your body releases in response to stress. Cortisol isn't bad. It's what helps you wake up in the morning and handle daily challenges. The problem comes when it stays elevated long after it should have dropped. Mine wasn't just a little high. It was like my body thought I was being chased by a tiger at midnight. No wonder I couldn't fall asleep. And even if I did manage to drift off, it was shallow, restless sleep that left me feeling as if I hadn't slept at all. I realized that stress wasn't just in my mind, it was in my body. Things like late night work, scrolling on my phone, even intense exercise right before bed, were telling my brain to keep producing cortisol. That hormone was sabotaging my melatonin, the one responsible for signaling my body to sleep. It was like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. When I started actively managing my stress during the day, through deep breathing, short breaks away from screens, and winding down earlier in the evening, my nights began to change. I noticed my body actually started to feel heavy and ready for rest, instead of buzzing with energy at the wrong time. I began to understand that sleep isn't something you can force at night. It's something you prepare for all day long by calming your stress system and letting your body know it's safe to rest. The next realization was that my daily habits mattered far more than my bedtime routine. For the longest time, I focused only on what I did in the last hour before bed, avoiding screens, reading a book, maybe drinking some herbal tea. And while those things helped a little, they were only touching the surface of the problem. The truth is, the quality of your sleep is largely determined by what you do from the moment you wake up until you lie down at night. I started looking at my entire day like a chain reaction. For example, if I hit the snooze button 3 times in the morning, I was already disrupting my body's internal clock. If I skipped breakfast or had a sugary snack mid-morning, my blood sugar would spike and crash, making me feel tired in the afternoon and tempted to nap, which would then push my bedtime later. Even the way I managed light exposure mattered. Staying indoors with artificial lighting all day meant my brain wasn't getting the strong daytime signal it needed to keep my circadian rhythm in sync. I also noticed how caffeine played into it. I thought coffee in the afternoon didn't affect me because I could still fall asleep at night. But what I didn't realize was that even if I could sleep, the caffeine was still preventing me from getting enough deep sleep. I would wake up feeling unrefreshed, and then, of course, I'd reach for more coffee. It was a loop I didn't see until I stepped back. When I began structuring my day with my sleep in mind, getting natural sunlight early in the morning, eating balanced meals, limiting caffeine to before noon, and moving my body at the right times, I started to notice a real shift. My evenings felt calmer, my mind slowed down more naturally, and my body seemed ready to rest without me having to convince it. That's when it hit me. A good night's sleep doesn't start at night. It starts the moment you wake up. Another major turning point was understanding the role of nutrition and blood sugar in regulating my sleep cycles. For years, I overlooked how much my eating patterns were affecting my nights. I thought as long as I avoided heavy meals right before bed, I was fine. But what I didn't realize was that my body's internal chemistry was being shaped all day long by what I was eating, and that directly impacted how easily I could fall asleep and stay asleep. Blood sugar swings were one of the biggest culprits. Whenever I ate something high in refined carbs or sugar, I'd get that temporary burst of energy, but a few hours later, my blood sugar would crash. If this happened close to bedtime, my body would respond by releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to bring my blood sugar back up. That might have been great for survival thousands of years ago, but for me, it meant suddenly being wide awake at 2 in the morning. I also realized that my brain depends heavily on certain nutrients to create the neurotransmitters that control sleep, like serotonin, which helps produce melatonin. Magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins became priorities in my diet. I started eating more leafy greens, nuts, seeds, avocados, and foods rich in healthy fats. These helped stabilize my energy during the day and made my nights much smoother. I even experimented with timing my last meal. If I ate too early, I sometimes found myself hungry at night, which would pull me out of deep sleep. If I ate too late, digestion would keep my body too active. I found my sweet spot, about 3 hours before bed, with a balanced meal containing protein, healthy fats, and fiber. Once I dialed in my nutrition and kept my blood sugar steady, I noticed fewer wake-ups in the night and a much stronger feeling of refreshment in the morning. That's when I realized sleep isn't just about what you do in bed, it's also about what you put on your plate. Another change that transformed my nights was learning to protect and strengthen my circadian rhythm, the body's natural clock that tells you when to be awake and when to sleep. For years, mine was completely out of sync. I would stay up late working or scrolling on my phone, then sleep in on weekends, thinking I was catching up. But every time I shifted my sleep and wake times, I was essentially giving my body jet lag without even leaving my home. The circadian rhythm is influenced most by light. In the morning, exposure to bright natural light tells your brain to start producing cortisol to wake you up and serotonin to lift your mood. At night, darkness signals your brain to release melatonin so you can fall asleep. I realized I had been sending my body mixed signals: dim mornings spent indoors, then bright screens and overhead lights in the evening. My brain was confused about whether it was day or night. So I made two simple but powerful changes. First, I started getting outside within the first 30 minutes of waking up, even if it was cloudy. That early light anchored my body clock, helping me feel more alert during the day and naturally sleepy at night. Second, I treated my evenings like a wind-down zone. I dimmed the lights, switched to warmer bulbs, and avoided intense screen time an hour before bed. This wasn't always perfect, but even small adjustments made a noticeable difference. Over time, my sleep started to feel more predictable. I would naturally start yawning around the same time every night, and my wake-up time became more consistent without an alarm. It felt like my body had its own reliable rhythm again. Once I aligned my environment and habits with that rhythm, falling asleep stopped being a battle. It became something my body wanted to do on its own. The final, and perhaps most rewarding lesson, was realizing that fixing my sleep wasn't just about ending fatigue. It was about unlocking a completely different version of myself. When I was stuck in poor sleep patterns, I thought I was functioning fine. I told myself I was just a night person, or that I could get by on less rest. But the truth was, I had no idea how much better life could feel until my sleep truly improved. When my nights became deeper and more restorative, my mornings stopped feeling like a fight. I didn't wake up dreading the day or relying on caffeine just to think clearly. I noticed my focus sharpen, my creativity flow more easily, and my mood stabilize in ways I hadn't experienced in years. Even my workouts felt stronger because my body was finally repairing itself properly at night instead of running on half power. One of the most surprising benefits was emotional balance. When you're sleep deprived, small problems feel huge and your patience runs thin. But with proper rest, I found myself handling challenges more calmly and making better decisions almost without trying. It's as if my brain had more bandwidth to think clearly and respond wisely.